Hey everybody, welcome to Dopamine. C-Note here. I'm kind of running a long distance to the computer and back, so pardon me for the lapses in time in between things. But hey, C-Note here, welcome to Dopamine, the show that is like not wearing any underwear. Comfortable, but a little bit awkward at high speeds. Today I wanted to talk about taking action, or rather, the lack of taking action. The fact that taking no action is kind of like, well, it's basically taking an action. You know, if you decide that you don't want to do something, you're essentially deciding to do something. That there is no such thing as avoiding something. That by making a choice, you are making a choice. So we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about that, and just kind of give you a little bit of a rundown of what's been going on in life lately, because, man, I'm exhausted. So I'm going to go press the button to play the intro, and then we're going to do this.
Drums, please.
Okay. Well, I've already started recording, but I was a little bit late on hitting the go live button on Facebook. So you're just joining me now on the Facebook version. I already went through the intro spiel and all that stuff. I don't know. I'm a little bit sloppy today. Everything's a little bit all over the place. Today I'm trying something a little bit different in terms of going live. So I'm doing this live on Facebook for those of you who only listen to the podcast version. Occasionally I go live on Facebook so I can get some comments and kind of talk about what's going on with with life and things. I'm gonna move this camera back a little bit. I feel like it's all up on me. So I'm trying this time to go live in the event itself as opposed to on the Dopamine page, because I don't know, I'm just playing with it and seeing who shows up and seeing who doesn't. But for the most part, this is where we're at. So anyway, so today I wanted to talk about taking action, or a lack of taking action. Essentially the idea that if you don't do something, you are deciding to do something. This tends to manifest when people are very intentional about something they want to do, like, you know, making a lot of big plans. You have some ideas for things. You want to make promises to your partner about how something is or isn't going to be, how something's going to work out, things like that. And it's sort of like not taking action is like the cousin of excuses. We're saying that we want to do things and we ultimately don't. We get kind of caught up in this life of having to like satiate people emotionally, or feel like we have to do that, feel like we have to like stave off people, and we're like saying like, okay, we're gonna do it, I promise. But then you don't do it for whatever reason. I understand life things get in the way. That's very different from not taking an action. Really, what I want to talk about in terms of not taking an action is making the choice to avoid something, making a choice to avoid those promises or to avoid certain types of feelings. Really, what the common thing that I've seen happen in a lot of in a lot of mental health cases, or people that I've spoken to on this podcast, or people that I've spoken to on the internet in our Facebook group, dopamine.group, is a common theme of repression, of this idea of we're holding ourselves back from doing the things we want to do. And I think sometimes we feel like not doing something is just like, you know, putting it off, not worrying about it. It's not our problem anymore. And there are so many things in life that we have to realize our issues are things that we have to address one way or another. So instead of saying no to something as an avoidance tactic, it's something that we have to realize that no is also an action, or not doing something is also an action. Avoiding a responsibility, avoiding a discussion, avoiding treatment, avoiding an idea is an avoidance tactic. It's something that is repressing what we want to do, but also a way to avoid our responsibilities. Our is sometimes a hard word to say for me. I say our. I sound like a pirate or a Philly person. It's a little tricky. So one of the things I do like to share with people is really this notion. And this is why I wanted to dedicate an episode to it, because it's something I've fallen victim to. I think many of us have had issues with this and not even realized it. That's why I want to bring this to light, because we may not be aware at all. The microphone's like all up in here. Look at that, just like creeping in. It's real weird. Trying to make it so that like it still sounds good, but the microphone's like not all up in the frame. But I'm kind of also far away from the computer. So, but just let me know if that sounds weird or looks weird. No, it's fine. Okay, we're good. Anyway, back in action. When you get into the habit of realizing that every choice that you make has some sort of consequence, or there's a decision involved, it makes you think about things a little bit differently. It makes you realize that you're responsible for way more things than you probably thought of initially. One of the kind of examples that I tend to think of is one of these shows that kind of fascinated me. It came out like I would say a few years ago, but probably closer to a decade. It was one of those like History Channel type of like what if type of shows, and not the way History Channel is now, where it's like aliens and shit. It was like an alternate history. What if humans just disappeared, sort of thing. And what's fascinating is if people disappeared, like all of the fauna and everything about the earth would start to basically reclaim the land. Like, the winds would erode buildings and everything would just start to crash over time, because gravity would take over, the consistency of winds would take over, continuing growing grass would take over, and eventually, it would almost be, after a matter of time, apparent that humans didn't exist at all. And the point I'm making there is that if you don't take an action, or if you decide to take an action, or decide not to take an action, the world around you is still going to keep doing its thing. It's still going to keep forming around you. So if you decide to stand still and just not do anything or avoid things, things are still going to happen to you, regardless of what you want them, whether you want them to or not. So kind of the point of deciding to take action, to take control, is that simple fact that you have the opportunity to take control over your life, over your situations, over your mental health, over your job, your relationships, your things like that. And I know it's exhausting. I know it's hard to be the one at the wheel all the time, especially if you're someone that is like the breadwinner in a family and you're the one that needs to take all of the responsibility to get things done. It is extremely difficult to feel like you're making constant decisions. And the thing is that decision fatigue, which is probably another episode I could do in its entirety, is a real thing. From the moment you wake up, you're making decisions. You're deciding when to wake up, whether to wake up. Should you go pee first? Should you go make breakfast first? Should you go brush your teeth first? Should you do this? Should you do that? And really what you can do is in terms of the episode of the decision fatigue that I will do at some point, is trying to find ways to streamline that so you're not necessarily making decisions, but things are kind of automated. But we get into this habit of feeling like things are kind of automated, or that that a lot of our life is so just kind of by the book and things that we're doing all the time, that we don't realize that we're actively making decisions to continue to do something. So I say no action is an action, but ultimately there's no such thing as no action. You know what I mean? Like, an action is a choice, and you're choosing not to do something or to do something. And, in this context of this show, that refers to, seeking therapy, seeking help, asking questions, and doing something about it. And doing something about your mental health, doing something about your state of being. For me, I was in a marriage that wasn't working for me in my past, and one of the things that was an issue was this feeling of like, okay, if I just stay here and I just exist and I just work towards, just staying in my lane and not causing too much trouble and just letting myself be, my own self somewhere else aside from things like that, not taking an action or not trying to have discussions or trying to not make things better as best as I can is not helpful. I definitely felt like I did the best I could in those situations, but ultimately, the example is that in relationship settings and work situations, and you're deciding to do a podcast or not do a podcast, regardless of how life is, deciding to not do something or to put it off for later is a decision, and it's going to affect you in some way or another. Ignoring something isn't going to make it go away. It's just going to put that decision in someone else's hands. Does that make sense? That's basically what I'm going for here. So I wanted to, now that I'm kind of done my own ranty part of this, I see that Molly's talking. I can't read it from here, but I'm going to try to pull it up on my phone so that I can look at things. So Mia has joined us. Miha, I think that's what your name is. I'm not sure how to actually pronounce your name. And Molly's with us. So Molly says, this makes me think of that Gandalf quote. All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given. We will just sit. Will we just sit while the time passes by anyway, or do something with it? And while it wasn't inspired by that, that quote basically is, I could have just came on camera and just said that quote, because that essentially is what covers what it is that this topic is all about. Realizing that time is consistent, and as much as we want to avoid things and not have to deal with it, time's going to keep going. People are going to keep moving. People are going to keep doing things. If I just sit here in this apartment and don't do anything, I think I said this in another podcast episode, but essentially if I stand here and I don't do anything, or I just lay on the couch and just fester away, I'm going to not shower. I'm going to start stinking. I'm going to start getting covered by parasites. Molly's going to leave long before then. And then somebody's going to kick me out of this apartment. And then they're going to put me in the street. And then I'm just going to lay there. And then a dog's going to come and start sniffing at me and then probably gnawing at me. And then eventually need to eat some food. And I don't, or drink some water. And I become a skeleton. And then I wither into dust like the end of Infinity War. Sorry, spoiler alert. I didn't say who, so don't freak out. So that's basically what I'm talking about here. And so since we made it through that, I will kind of talk a little bit about what's been crazy happening lately. There's been a lot of things that have been frustrating lately, and for me, I decided to take the action of recording this podcast. It kind of worked out timing wise because I had it scheduled for 4 p.m. Eastern, and we had someone scheduled to come in and replace our refrigerator, which just broke recently, and we are also broke, so I have to get rid of all the food in the fridge basically, and figure out ways to feed ourselves for the next few days while we figure out money situations. But I could have decided to just not do this and let it go. And then, it might have a ripple effect of people wondering where's the podcast? Why don't you have an episode up? And not being consistent with the podcast is going to affect the visibility of it. It's going to affect the way people talk about the episodes, or maybe the way that it will reach people algorithmically. And I got to keep on, keep on keeping on. It's the same thing kind of with sales. You get very desperate at times like this, when you're broke, and it's important to kind of keep your resolve and realize that you can't just go into desperation mode. People can see that, they can hear that, they can feel that. And, then you just kind of create this stress and this panic, and things just kind of compound. And, so, part of taking action versus not taking action is deciding to continue to be consistent and continue to work towards things, and not let that stress or desperation kind of get the best of you. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. So, we've been dealing with a lot of difficulty because basically this all kicked off where over the last 6 months I've had some financial issues, basically been kind of living month to month, but also, in a good way, been able to sustain a living on my own. So I've been doing this podcast. I've started another podcast, been doing graphic design work. Molly's been selling paintings. We've been doing little things. But we had basically a surprise life event, which I think is what the next episode is going to be about, where I'll kind of break down what really happened there. But generally, what happened was that, my car got impounded. It cost a lot of money to get it out. That basically put us into the red, cash-wise. So that happened, and then our fridge broke, and and now we don't have any money. The car is good. I wanted to start doing Uber to make some money, but then Uber said they have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to do a background check. So, here I am doing the podcast still, staying the course and doing things. So even now I have to let the new refrigerator, which just got replaced by our landlord, thankfully today that happened, feels like a positive step in the right direction for us. I have to wait an hour before I can plug it in because it was on its back and all the fluids need to move and things. So, but for the most part, things are, going to get better. And if we decide to not take action, despite the stresses, despite all of those things going on, things will just get worse, and despite all of the stress and all of the ridiculousness, we have to carry on. She's doing her best to find means to get extra money, and I'm doing the same. I'm putting out my podcast course, which is available for pre-sale. If you want to message me, we can talk about that. It's for $299, which is going to be about 70% off of the total course. And as it stands, it's like 2.5 hours, and it's going to be at the end of it, somewhere between 8 to 10 hours. It's going to be like this massive, wonderful thing that is going to be quite hefty in price by the time the pre-sale ends, which is on June 8th. So message me, get your hands on that, and we can make things happen. But even though I'm doing that, I'm working on the course, I'm working on ways to connect with people to do consulting and trying to get people to, to pay for graphic design services and all that stuff. It's a matter of reaching in and finding that hustle and finding ways to make it work, as opposed to just, putting my head in my hands and crying and not doing anything about it. So certainly take the time to work through emotions and talk through things and find a way to keep yourself in a healthy mental state, but understand that you also need to take action in your life. You are responsible for yourself. You are responsible for your mental health. You are responsible for everything in your life, and you need to find ways to keep going. And I know it's hard and it's difficult, but there's always a way. Where there is a will, there is a way. So find your reasons, find your why, find your mission, find the thing that you need to continue to focus on and point the compass to, and then you will always find a way to make it work. There's always a way to take action. Even this morning I got in and I was like, Molly, please, can you text the landlord and let's get this thing moving? And she did. And, I did the same with getting some stuff going with my podcast course, and she's reaching out to people to get some help to do some consulting on her own, because she's amazing at Instagram. So if you need help with Instagram, message me or her and we can get you connected in doing that. And there's just a lot of things that we can do to, at least attempt to make things better. And if we were to just sit around and do nothing, that would feel wrong. That would feel avoidant, and that would be deliberately avoiding taking any kind of action. So there's that. James is commenting, but it's not showing up. He says, damn you, C-Note, for ruining a movie I'll never see. And, that's fine. It's whatever. It's just like every movie that you ever see, everybody dies. That's the thing. You just go into every movie assuming everyone dies and you'll be fine. So, and Molly also says you got to do what you can with what you have. And that's part of it too, is just looking at the reality of the situation and making deliberate choices to go in the direction that works. Looking for a lead, looking for anything, and then, testing out that direction and seeing where it goes. So I'm going to wrap up I'm going to wrap up this episode, but in the future, I think the next episode is going to be about, big life surprises or immediate life changes, whether it's like a loss of a loved one or getting pulled over and getting your car impounded, becoming broke instantly or something like that. I know there are some people out there who have had some really, really major big life changes, so maybe I'll try to get a guest on for that, to have them speak on a kind of a larger, a grander level, but there's plenty I can speak to that, so expect that to come the next time this episode posts. And also kind of a programming note that I'm probably not going to be doing as many Facebook Lives for these recordings because I have to kind of catch up a little bit, and doing these lives is both a little nerve-wracking. It involves scheduling, and then when I actually want to record, I have to wait until like the time that I scheduled, and sometimes it's just not as convenient. But again, taking action. So let me know in the comments if you've had situations where you've had to take an action on something and you've decided not to, and it ended up going badly because you chose to not take an action. I'd love to hear about those stories, especially if you're on Anchor. Please leave a call in, and I'll broadcast those on the next episode, and we'll talk about that in the Dopamine group, dopamine.group. And if you have not subscribed to the podcast, please go to dopamine.life, DOPEAMINE, at dopamine.life, and subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, all the good things. And yeah, that's it. I'm going to catch you guys next time. Let me see. Well, actually, okay. James is finally in here. He says, love the honesty, bro. Really do. Fuck, now you're making it worse. That's what I do. I make it worse by making it better. I'll see you guys. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching and or listening. If you thought this was a dope show, but wait until next week because it's always going to get better. That's kind of the point, isn't it? And if you would like, please go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts, and please leave us a positive review. Or, if you have a problem, let me know and I'll try to fix it too. But if you're watching on YouTube as well, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit all the comments, all that good stuff. We appreciate the love. We appreciate you guys. And, we're going to keep doing it for you and do the best we can. So thanks for listening. Go to howmynameschristian.com or dopamine.life. Check us out, or cnote.media, to learn how to make your own podcasting videos and go from there. So catch you guys later.